Hello, I'm Sensei Alex Kakio. Thank you for joining me this evening for meditation and suture study. This evening's practice will consist of a 15-minute guided meditation, a reading from the Brahma's Sutra, and then a Dharma talk. The title of today's Dharma talk will be Gratitude in the Buddhist Precepts. Before we get into that, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great too. So, as we get ready for our 15-minute guided meditation, I'll give you a moment to find a comfortable position. The only rule is that it needs to be in a position that you can hold for at least 15 minutes without moving. Also, if you want to lay down, that's fine, but please don't fall asleep. If you'd like some instruction, what I like to do is sit cross-legged on the floor or on a cushion. Back straight, chin slightly tucked. Left hand goes palm up in the lap. Right hand goes palm up over the left. Eyes can be closed, but if we'd like to keep them open, that's fine. Just point them downwards at a 45-degree angle towards the floor to eliminate visible distractions. And we'll begin our meditation as we always do with the breath. Breathing in and out through the nose. Breathing in this way engages the parasympathetic portion of our nervous system, sending signals to our bodies that we're safe, that we can relax. Oftentimes it causes a feeling of calm to come over us. And as we breathe on every inhale, we poke our belly button out slightly, just like we had a large meal. We relax on the exhale. Finally, we're wondering what to do with our thoughts. We simply bring our focus to the physical sensations of the breath. The feeling of air moving in and out of our lungs. The feeling of our belly and our diaphragm expanding and contracting with each breath. We'll do this for about 2 minutes. Just breathe and settle into the meditation. I'll keep time, no need to worry about that. And if our mind wanders, that's okay. We simply say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to the breathing and the physical sensations of the breath. Wonderful. Now we'll continue with the meditation by adding a visualization to the exercise. We'll visualize a fire burning in our belly, in the space behind our belly button. And this fire is our favorite color. If we like blue, the fire is blue. If we like green, the fire is green. Burning like a campfire in the woods. Oftentimes, when we want to make a fire bigger, we blow on the coals to give it more oxygen to burn. And that's what we'll do today. With every inhale, we'll visualize air coming into our lungs. And as we breathe out through the nose, we visualize ourselves blowing on the coals of the fire, feeding it oxygen, making it bigger and brighter with every breath. This fire represents our own enlightened nature, and with every breath, we feed that enlightenment and grow it within us. We'll do this for about 2 minutes. I'll keep time. Breathing in, bringing air into our lungs, breathing out, blowing on and feeding the fire of our enlightenment. Good work. Everyone's sitting so quietly and so still. It adds a wonderful energy to the practice. Now we'll build on that energy, continuing with our visualization, imagining a channel going down from the fire in our belly, down, down, down to the center of the earth. And once we get there, we find an energy that's identical to our own. If the fire in our belly is blue, the earth's energy is blue. If the fire in our belly is green, the earth's energy is green. And what we'll do is with every inhale, we'll pull energy up from the earth, up, up, up until it reaches our belly, mixing with this spirit of enlightenment we already have there. growing it, amplifying it. And then just like we did before, we'll continue to breathe on the fire with every exhale, making it even bigger and brighter still. We breathe in through the nose and energy comes up from the earth, storing it in our belly, and with every exhale through the nose, we blow on the fire of our enlightenment, building on and amplifying it. We'll do this for about a minute. I'll keep time. And if our mind wanders, that's okay. We simply say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to our breathing and the visualization. Excellent. Keep breathing. Now continuing with the visualization, we send a second channel of energy going from the fire in our belly, up, 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 past our solar plexus, past our throat, up to the top of our heads. So we have one channel of energy going from our belly down to the center of the earth. And a second channel of energy going from our belly up to the tops of our heads. With every inhale, we visualize ourselves pulling energy up from the earth, storing it in our belly, blending it with the fire of our own enlightened nature. With every exhale, we push that energy up, up, up onto the tops of our heads until it explodes like a volcano, covering every inch of our body in healing spiritual light. We breathe in, energy comes up from the earth to our belly. We breathe out, we push that energy up the top of our heads until it explodes like a volcano. You've had a difficult week, lots of challenges and lots of joys. And this is our chance to send that healing spiritual light wherever it's needed most. Whether it's the top of our heads, the bottoms of our feet, our knees, our shoulders. We'll breathe in this way for about a minute, and I'll keep time. And if our mind wanders, we simply say hello to our thoughts and come back to the breathing and to the visualization. Great work. Meditation is a powerful practice, an important one. It's good we were able to do this today. But now it's time to bring our meditation to a close. So we'll begin that by slowly, gently cutting off the channel of energy going to the tops of our heads. Until as we breathe, the energy barely reaches our nose, barely reaches our throat, barely reaches our solar plexus, until it stops right where it started, in our belly. Then we'll send our energy down to the center of the earth. Noticing that even though the earth fed us today, it's not depleted. The more energy it gives, the more it has to give. The Buddha reached down to the earth in the moment of his enlightenment 2,600 years ago. And now we've done the same. Perhaps we give a silent bow, thanking her for supporting us in our practice. And then we slowly, gently cut off that energy channel, pulling it into ourselves. Finally, we sit with the energy in our belly, the fire of our own enlightened nature, noticing that that energy is always there, that we can call upon it whenever we need to. But for now, we allow the visualization to fade. And then we come back into our bodies by moving our heads to the left and to the right, back and forth, slowly, gently, until finally we come back to center. We roll our shoulders forward and back, feeling the physical sensations of our body, the movement of our clothing against our skin, until finally we allow our shoulders to hang gently towards the floor. And then when we're ready, and only when we're ready, if our eyes are closed, we open them. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. Excellent. Thank you for engaging in that practice with me. It's always wonderful when we can sit together as a group. Sitting alone is important, but sitting with others is a different type of energy. That's very nice. So, now we'll begin our suture reading for the evening. So, today's reading will come from the BDK English Tripitaka translation of the Brahma Sutra. Not necessary to have a copy of the sutra, however, it's helpful if you'd like to follow along. And we're starting on page 44, the 10 grave precepts. Prohibition of killing for pleasure. The Buddha said, "My disciples, if you yourself kill, or you incite someone else to kill, or you participate in the planning of a killing, or praise killing, or enjoy seeing someone kill, or kill by magical spells, then you have the causes of killing, the conditions of killing, the method of killing, the act of killing. This holds true even for the accidental killing of any form of life, Bodhisattvas should give rise to an enduring attitude of compassion, an attitude of reverence and obedience, and devise skillful means to save and protect all sentient beings. On the other hand, if a bodhisattva kills a living creature and takes pleasure in the act, this constitutes a bodhisattva parajika offense. Prohibition of stealing others' property. My disciples, you should not yourself steal, incite others to steal, or steal through deception. If you engage in the causes of stealing, the conditions of stealing, the planning of stealing, the act of stealing, or stealing through magical spells, and so on, up to stealing the property of spiritual beings or the property of thieves, no matter what object is stolen, whether a single needle or blade of grass, or even if you have stolen by accident, a bodhisattva generates the Buddha nature mind of reverence and compassion, always assisting all people to bring about well-being and happiness. If instead you steal others' wealth and possessions, this is a parajika offense for bodhisattvas. Prohibition of the heartless pursuit of lust. My disciples, you should not engage in lustful behaviors, incite someone to engage in lustful behavior, or even indulge in unplanned lustful behavior with any woman. You should avoid the causes of debauchery, the conditions of lustful behavior, the planning of lustful behavior, and the consummated act of lustful behavior. This includes everything up to sexual gratification with female animals, female celestials, or female spirits, as well as deviant forms of sexual conduct. Moreover, bodhisattvas should give rise to an attitude of piety. They should save all sentient beings by providing them with the pure teachings. If indeed they repeatedly indulge in lustful behavior with anyone, engaging in sexual acts with animals, or one's mother, daughter, sister, or another close relative, then this is cruelty and constitutes a bodhisattva parajika offense. 4. Prohibition of intentional lying. My disciples, if you engage in lying on your own, encourage others to lie, or lie through deception, then you are involved in the causes of lying, the conditions of lying, the method of lying, and the act of lying. This also includes saying that one has seen what one has not seen, saying you have not seen something that you have seen, or lying implicitly through bodily actions or within one's own mind. Bodhisattvas always give rise to right speech and right views, and always lead all sentient beings to practice right speech and right views. If, on the other hand, you lead sentient beings to wrong speech, wrong views, and wrong activities, this constitutes a bodhisattva parajika offense. 5. Prohibition of the sale of alcohol. My disciples, if you yourself sell alcohol, or you encourage others to do so, then herein are the causes of selling alcohol, the conditions for selling alcohol, the method of selling alcohol, and the act of selling alcohol. All kinds of alcohol should not be sold, as consumption of alcohol leads to the commission of other crimes. Instead, bodhisattvas should give rise to penetrating wisdom in all sentient beings. If, on the other hand, they lead sentient beings into distorted states of mind by selling them alcohol, this is a bodhisattva parajika offense. 6. Prohibition of speaking of the faults of others. My disciples, if you yourself speak about the faults of renunciant bodhisattvas, lay bodhisattvas, bhikshus, bhikshunis, or you encourage someone else to speak of their faults, then you have enacted the causes of fault-finding, the conditions of fault-finding, the method of fault-finding, and the act of fault-finding. When bodhisattvas hear about non-Buddhist or evil adherents of the two vehicles, we talk about that within the Buddha Dharma, which is not the Dharma and not the Vinaya. They should always be compassionate. They should teach these unwholesome adherents and cause them to give rise to wholesome faith in the great vehicle. If instead bodhisattvas discuss the faults of those within the fold of the Buddha Dharma, this is a bodhisattva parajika offense. 7. Prohibition of praising oneself and disparaging others. My disciples, if with your own mouth you praise yourself and disparage others, or if you encourage people to praise themselves and disparage others, then you have the causes of disparagement of others and conditions of disparagement of others, the method of disparagement of others and the act of disparagement of others. On behalf of sentient beings, bodhisattvas should receive their blame and reflect on their own wrongdoings, and attribute good works to others. Should proclaim your own merits and cover up other people's good works, causing them to be disparaged. This constitutes a bodhisattva parajika offense. 8. Prohibition of parsimony and abuse of others. My disciples, if you yourself are stingy, or you encourage others to be stingy, and you have carried out the causes of parsimony, the conditions of parsimony, the methods of parsimony, and the act of parsimony. When seeing any destitute person begging for help, a bodhisattva should offer whatever that person needs. But if a bodhisattva in a wicked and hateful state of mind does not offer so much as a single coin, a single needle, or a single blade of grass to someone in need, or does not teach one phrase, one verse, not even a tiny grain of the Dharma for seekers of the Dharma, and instead humiliates that person, this constitutes a bodhisattva parajika offense. 9. Prohibition of holding resentments and not accepting apologies. My disciples, if you are hateful or encourage others to be hateful, then you have the causes of hatred, the conditions of hatred, the framework of hatred, and the activity of hatred. Instead, a bodhisattva should encourage the growth of wholesome roots in all sentient beings, and without quarreling, always generate compassion. If instead you revile sentient and non-sentient beings, or pummel them with your fist, or attack them with knives or sticks, and do not let up in your anger even when this person seeks reconciliation, if he or she approaches with sincere words of apology, and you still do not release your anger, this constitutes a bodhisattva parajika offense. 10. Prohibition of denigration of the three treasures. If my disciples, you denigrate the three treasures or encourage others to denigrate them, then you have the causes of denigration, the conditions of denigration, the form of denigration, and the action of denigration. Instead, if a bodhisattva hears a non-Buddhist or an evil person uttering even a single word of denigration of the Buddha, it should feel so that bodhisattva as if 300 sharp spears were piercing his heart. How then could he himself slander the Buddha and not give rise to the mind of faith and complacent attitude? If instead he assists such evil people and those with mistaken views in slandering the three treasures, then this constitutes a bodhisattva parajika offense. Conclusion. All good students, this is the 10-part pratimoksha of the bodhisattvas, which you should study. You should not break even one of these precepts, as if violating just one is not such a big issue. Much less should you break all 10. If someone violates the precepts in this way, he will not attain the awakening of the mind of enlightenment. In this lifetime, he will fail at kingship, he will fail at wheel-turning kingship, he or she will fail as a bhikshu or bhikshuni. He will fail at the practice of the 10 stages of the departure toward the destination, at the 10 stages of nurturance, at the 10 admenting stages, at the 10 grounds, and at the stage of the marvelous fruit of the ever-abiding Buddha nature. Someone who violates these precepts will fail at all of these and fall into the 3 evil destinies. And for a duration as long as 2 or 3 kalpas, he or she will not hear the name of his father or mother, or the 3 treasures. Therefore, you should avoid breaking any one of these precepts. All of you bodhisattvas who are now studying, who will study, and you have already studied these 10 precepts, should study them with an attitude of reverence and uphold them. They are explained in detail in the chapter on the 80,000 rules of conduct. Wow, that's some heavy stuff. And it's interesting because some of the precepts are somewhat obvious, to refrain from killing, to refrain from stealing, and others are a little, maybe we don't see what's the big deal. When we talk about lust, when we talk about the sale and the consumption of alcohol, what's the big deal? So what I'd like to take some time to do today is discuss the precepts, not on an individual basis, but as a whole. Why do we care about the precepts? Why are they important? How do they help us in our practice to become fully enlightened Buddhists? Now, we have to understand first that these are guidelines to help us live peaceful, more contented lives with ourselves and with other people. We can think of them kind of like having rules for if we live in a house with roommates. So maybe we have quiet hours. After 10 o'clock, people have to either wear headphones or keep the volume down if they're watching a movie. Maybe we have rules around the kitchen that if you cook something, you don't leave dirty dishes in the sink, you wash them immediately. Maybe there's a rotation around who takes the trash out each week. And the reason for this isn't because we're trying to tell people what to do or force people to live a certain way. It's because having these rules and guidelines helps us all live more successfully together. They make life easier and more contenting for everyone involved. So if I have to wake up at 6 a.m. every day for work and my roommate wears his headphones while he listens to music at 3 in the morning, then there's no conflict. On the other hand, if he's blasting his music in the middle of the night and I have to wake up early, well, now there's some consternation. So we can think of the precepts as rules or guidelines to help us live well with our roommates here on planet Earth, which constitute all sentient beings. The precepts are also important because they help us attain our goals as Buddhist practitioners, which, as Buddhists, we have 3 goals. We want to realize enlightenment, we want to attain nirvana, and we want to end suffering for ourselves and all sentient beings. And enlightenment, of course, is the full realization and manifestation of our own Buddha nature in daily life, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. And nirvana is inner peace, the quieting of our greed, anger, and ignorance, so we can be peaceful and contented in every moment. That said, why should we care? Why should we care about enlightenment? Why should we care about inner peace or contentment? And maybe you shouldn't. That's a question we have to ask ourselves. And I don't mean that in a sort of smart alecky way. It's just an honest conversation we need to have with ourselves. Because if we don't know why we're doing something, then we're not going to do it. So as an example, if we go to a gym, let's say, and we want to run a marathon, well, at that point, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to spend time on the bench press trying to bench 350 pounds. That's not going to help us run our marathon. On the other hand, if we want to be a bodybuilder, then it doesn't make sense to spend a whole lot of time on the treadmill or the elliptical machine. So we have to really think and ask ourselves, do I want to realize enlightenment? Do I want inner peace? Do I care about ending suffering for myself and other people? And if the answer is yes to those questions, then the precepts are something we should abide by. And if the answer is no, well, maybe we should go try something else. But let's say we do care about those things. Let's say we do want to realize enlightenment, attain nirvana, and end suffering for ourselves and other people. There are 2 ways that the precepts help us do that. The first is through self-power, which is we can think of as personal responsibility. Through our own effort, through our own power, through our own strength of will, we will engage in these practices and realize our own enlightenment. Self-power is a big deal in practices like Zen. where we sit in meditation and we chant and we do prostrations. But the idea, generally speaking, is we're doing it on our own. We have to sit on the cushion. We have to study the sutras. And it's through the engagement with these practices that we awaken our own Buddha nature, which is perfectly fine. It's definitely a part of Buddhist practice. The other part of Buddhist practice, however, is other power, and the precepts help us in this way as well. We see other power in practices like Pure Land Buddhism. So Shinran Shonin, who was one of the popularizers, I should say, the promulgators of Zen or Pure Land Buddhism in Japan, said that we were bamboo beings, that we were so filled with greed, anger, and ignorance, that there were so many distractions in the world that it was impossible to engage with the traditional Zen practices, with the traditional monastic practices that had come before. That instead we had to rely on the other power of Amida Buddha through the chant Namo Amida Butsu, and hope that his grace would be enough to save us through the primal vows, so that we would realize and see the Pure Land in this world, and also go to live in it after we die. Now, the thing about self-power, personal responsibility, and other power, which focus more on gratitude, is they're not diametrically opposed. Because if we understand that this personal self that we have is part of a larger other, part of a larger whole, then self-power is other power, and other power is self-power. So when I sit on the cushion and meditate, I'm not just doing it for myself, I am by extension doing it for all sentient beings, because we are all interconnected and interpenetrated with one another. Similarly, when we engage in gratitude practices like the Ninbutsu chant, Namo Amida Butsu, we are taking refuge in Amida, but we are also taking refuge in all other sentient beings. The truck drivers, the cashier at the gas station, the person who delivers our food to our door via whatever app we like to use. We are expressing gratitude to them because they are supporting us in our practice, creating an environment where we can realize enlightenment. So there's no real separation between self-power and other power, between personal responsibility and gratitude. It's simply a mental concept we have that helps us understand the teachings more easily. So what I'd like to do first is talk about the precepts in relation to self-power first. And the way we can understand this best is by looking at the Five Aggregates, which is something that was put forth in the Pali Canon and expressed more fully by Vasubandhu and the Yogacara school of Buddhism. And the Five Aggregates go as follows. There is contact, attention, perception, sensation, and volition. And what this is a cycle that our minds go through multiple times every second of every day that helps us to understand what's going on in the world around us. Contact is literal contact with a sense organ in the world around us. So contact would be me looking behind me and seeing a houseplant. Attention is when we put our attention on the thing we've made contact with. Perception is sometimes called a tone, is the thing we're paying attention to, good, bad, or neutral. Sensation is when we ascribe a name and an emotional connection to the object. So maybe I look at the houseplant, I see it's green and healthy, the tone is good, the emotion is happy. And then volition is the act, either mental, a thought, or physical action that we do. So an example would be I make contact with the floor with my hand, and I pay attention. I notice it. And then the tone, the perception is bad. The floor is dirty. So now there's a sensation. I feel fear and maybe some anger because the floor is dirty. And I grew up in a household where I was punished if the floors weren't kept clean. And now, based on that fear I'm feeling, there's a volitional act that takes place. Maybe I get up and I grab a broom and I sweep the floor, and I feel some guilt and some anger because how could I let it get into this state of being? Maybe if there's someone else who's responsible for keeping the floor clean, now that I'm in this state of fear and anger, I go and I have a conversation with them that's not so pleasant because I'm speaking out of fear and out of anger. Now, it should be noted that, again, the 5 aggregates are something that we all go through every moment of every day. So this isn't a good or bad thing. It's simply something we need to be made aware of, that we have this habit energy that causes our minds to act in a certain way. And for most people, we behave in this way unintentionally, meaning that we're just on autopilot. We make contact, we give attention, perception, sensation, volition. It all happens and we don't give any intentional thought to it. I'm angry, I go and yell at my roommate. I'm fearful, I sweep the floor and I feel guilty about it. So what the precepts do is they help us deal with that volitional aspect of the 5 aggregates, the action portion, by giving us something else to focus on. So maybe I touch the floor, I pay attention, there's a bad sensation, a bad perception because it's dirty. The sensation of fear comes up. But then I remember the precepts say that I must practice right speech. I must not speak badly of other people. I must not disparage them. So remembering that, even though I still have that fear and anger energy in my mind, wanting to hold to the precepts, I go and speak to my roommate, hey, you're supposed to sweep the floor, can you get to that? But I do it with a mind and a tone of kindness and compassion. Now that happens one time. But what it does is it disconnects that habit energy that would have made me go and yell at my roommate. Or maybe I see something that's valuable there in the corner and I have the habit energy come up through contact, attention, perception, sensation. I want to steal it. Because I grew up in a life, in a household where stealing was accepted. Maybe it was necessary in order to survive. But because the precepts say we must refrain from stealing, well, I hold off. I don't take the thing that doesn't belong to me. Again, working with that volition, working with our actions to break that old habit energy. And then what happens is as we develop new habits, new volitional energies in ourselves, now we're just not up here at the volitional level. Now we see the sensations. Now we see the emotions and the thoughts that are coming forth. I touch the floor, it's dirty, I'm angry. Ooh, now I notice my anger. I don't just act on it. And then I think back, well, why am I angry? Is this anger useful in this moment? Oh, well, maybe not. So I don't act on my anger. So we start up here with volition, which comes from holding to the precepts. That creates a space between action and sensation. There's a gap there. So now we can think about how we want to behave instead of doing whatever comes naturally, which may be helpful, may not be helpful, but now we can choose. And then sensation, as we get a hold of sensation, we go back to perceptions and the tones, and I think this thing is good, I think this thing is bad, I think this is neutral. And then we go even further and we look and see, what am I paying attention to in my daily life? Am I looking at things that cause me to have healthy, life-affirming thoughts and emotions, or am I paying attention to things that are harmful? When I'm on social media, am I doom scrolling and finding the things that make me angry and fearful for the world, or am I paying attention at and looking at things that are healthy and life-affirming and useful in my practice? And as we keep breaking down this cycle, eventually it all falls away. And what we find underneath all of that is our own Buddha nature, our own enlightened nature. And now we're able to purposefully manifest that in the world because we've broken down step by step that habit energy that had us going on autopilot. Sometimes we behave, sometimes we don't behave, just whatever comes up. No. By holding to the precepts, we're able to take that step create that tiny crack in the egg so that we could see what was going on underneath. So, that's one reason we follow the precepts, because holding to the precepts creates an environment where it's more easy for us to eventually realize our own enlightened nature and manifest it in daily life. It gives us the opportunity to study our own mind. Now, the other power portion of the precepts, the gratitude piece, we hold to the precepts as a way of saying thank you. So, to give you sort of a real world example of this, I recently contracted poison ivy. I was out in the yard, I was doing some work. I don't know when or how I came in contact with it. I'm guessing I went over it with the tractor and it got chopped up and got all over my body, the oils did. And I had what the doctor called a hyperallergic reaction. Meaning after about 24 hours, I had very angry, blistery welts all over my arm, my stomach, my thigh. It was very painful, very unpleasant. Thankfully, I was able to get into an urgent care center. I got the medicine I needed, and I'll be good as new in a couple of days. So this is other power. This had nothing to do with my ability to care for myself. I'm the one who screwed myself up, in fact. So in this case, I was completely reliant on other people for my health and well-being. And noticing that other power, that assistance I received from them, from the doctor, from the nurse, from the pharmacist, etc., it causes me to want to express gratitude, to say thank you in some way. So how do we do that? Well, one is to literally say thank you, of course. But the other way is to hold to the precepts. Because again, the precepts are kind of like house rules if we have roommates, not just for us, but for all sentient beings on the planet. So in the same way that I might clean my dishes after I cook a meal to express gratitude to my roommate because they give me their half of the rent on time each month, I can hold to their precepts to express gratitude to the doctor, to express gratitude to the nurse, to express gratitude to the people who made the medicine that took all of this pain out of my life. By refraining from stealing, by refraining from killing, by refraining from the sale and consumption of alcohol, what I'm doing is, in my own way, creating a world that's more peaceful and more contented, not just for me, but for them as well. I'm living my life so that my entire life is a thank you, is an expression of gratitude to all sentient beings who support me in every moment of the day so that I can realize enlightenment, so I can attain nirvana, so I can end suffering for myself and all sentient beings. We see this in Pure Land Buddhism, in the Nimbutsu chant, which is not just a chant, Namo Amida Butsu, but it's also a way of life. We speak the Nimbutsu. We live the Nimbutsu with our hands, with our mouths, with the way we manage our food, with the way we speak to others. If our life becomes an expression of our gratitude, it very naturally becomes a life that holds to the precepts. It becomes a living prayer, if you will. But we have to remember, whether we engage with the precepts from a place of self-power, where we can learn about the five aggregates, breaking that habit energy, understanding the way our mind works, or if we engage with the precepts from a place of gratitude, a way of saying thank you to all sentient beings for the help they give us each day, this isn't a power struggle, right? No one, me or anyone else, is going to follow you around and you did this right, you didn't do that right. Remember, we're not to disparage each other in the practice. This is a choice we have to make in every moment of every day. Do we want to give over to our negative habits, or do we want to follow the precepts? Do we want to make life worse for ourselves or others, or do we want to make it better? It's our choice. And whatever choice we make is our choice. We also need to remember that this takes time. This isn't something we're going to figure out in a day, a week, or even in a year. Remember, according to Buddhism, we've all lived countless lifetimes before this one. So we have countless lifetimes of habit energy, both negative and positive, that we need to work through. So if we have a lot of angry habit energy, going back to the 5 aggregates, it may take a lot of volitional actions, a lot of us working with gratitude, working with generosity, even in the moments we don't want to necessarily, before it starts to feel natural. If we've lived a life where we're constantly arguing and bickering with other people, it may take us some time to speak kindly and naturally to others, even when we don't necessarily want to, before it becomes a natural part of our lives. And that's okay. The Buddha himself had to practice for many years before he realized enlightenment. And then even after that, he practiced for another 45. This is a lifetime practice. So if we make a mistake, it's okay, as long as we recognize we made a mistake and we try to do better next time. If we do this through the practices of self-power and the practices of other power, and through our engagement with the precepts, we will make life better for ourselves and for all sentient beings. Amitabha. So, that's the talk for today. I hope it was helpful. We'll just end with a few announcements. So this is Meditation and Suture Study. It happens every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, broadcast right here from this channel. Please make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great as well. On Sundays, we do Dharma Sunday, which is a little bit less involved. It's also at 7 p.m. Eastern. And what we do there is I take some topic from the news or pop culture and I reflect on it from the Buddhist perspective. So tying canonical Buddhist teachings with our daily lives. So I hope to see you there. Until next time, Amitabha.